Here's a video on my experiences changing the bulb in my Honda CR-V. This is what it looked like when I bought it, and only the button lights worked. I want the dial lights to work like you can see right here. So I only needed 4 tools: a long Phillips, a short Phillips, a small flathead, and a prying tool. First thing is get that black frame off of the top up by the radio. There are 2 screws, Phillips screws, that are holding it in. So they're right there. Get your Phillips up in there. Good idea to pull back on the emergency brake. You'll need to eventually to get everything off. So take those 2 screws out. Don't lose them. Then I just put my hand up underneath it, pulled back, it popped free. I had already had that thing off before to put in that sweet aftermarket stereo. You got to take that green plug off. It's easy. It just literally pulls right out. Just squeeze it a little bit, leave it hanging. Now you got to get this panel off in this little compartment. This probably took the most time, and there's 2 little notches, as you can see, at the top of that panel. And I used my pry bar tool. A smaller one would have probably been better. But just start prying in there. I eventually was able to work it free, prying up from the bottom is what really did it more than anything, I think. But there's a screw back there, Phillips head screw. Let's take that thing out. Put your screwdriver in there and take that screw out, and those 2 holes that you see is where you're going to put your fingers in to just pull it straight back. So when I pulled it straight back, you got to give it some effort. Only the right side freed up. The left side over by the hazard button did not. So I was able to get the right hand side free, no problem. But the left, yeah, pull on that door. That's a good idea. Don't do that. Just start prying. I got my fingers worked in there on the left hand side, just pulled it free. It won't go far because there's a harness connected to that hazard light, and you got to get it off and you got to spin it around. There's one view of it. There's a light gray little connector, and there's a tab at the top of that light gray connector, and if you push in there you can see it. Just push in and it'll pull out. It took some doing. Now there's 2 screws to take out the actual climate control unit. There's one. I didn't get the other one in the picture. It's just to the left. Take them off and then pry it off. I worked up from the bottom, just using my pry tool. Prying, and it gave way pretty easy. It was weird. It was jammed up against that emergency brake, so it took some doing to free it up. It won't go far because you have to disconnect that green connector there. There is a tab. Just squeeze it towards the wiring. It'll come out right out. And once you do that, you will have your unit. There are 7 screws that hold that unit together. So just take your Phillips screwdriver and remove those screws and then pull it apart. And the section you want to work it with is right here. So those are the bulbs that I'm changing, are the white ones. Those are the ones that are out. The gray ones, those are still working, so I'm not replacing them, but it's the same procedure. You're just going to screw them off. So those are the bulbs that work. I'm not going to replace those. Obviously, I don't have any money. So just put your flathead screwdriver into that notch that's vertical and just turn it to the left a little bit and it'll pop right out. This is what the bulb looked like. I'm using Honda OEM parts, which I recommend because they go straight in. So there's the burnout one compared to the new one, if that helps. You can only put it in one way, as you can see with the notches, but put it in, take your little flathead screwdriver, turn it to the right so it's locked in. I did it for all 3. They were all burnt out, obviously. Now I have all the 3 new ones in there. I twisted them to the right so they're locked in. I put the 7 screws back in. Get that green cable ready. It won't come out very far. So you're going to have to kind of turn it at an angle. That's what I did, and get that connector in there, then line it up. Shove it up against those two holes, put your two screws in, and then connect that gray connector to that compartment. Push it straight in. It goes back together rather easily. This is what the back of that panel looks like. It was the hardest part. And then put in the final green connector for the upper frame. Push it straight in, and it's done. Now the only thing to do is to test it out. Will it work? Yes.